If you've watched this channel for any length of time, you may have picked up that I am, in fact, a proud nerd.
Really?
Really? I mean, I have a 3D printer in my office, along with a CNC machine and a soldering station and a mandatory hot glue gun, and I know how to use all of them and regularly do. I am a Star Trek nerd. I know which of the dwarves in Middle-earth lived the longest. Was Durin, by the way. And I'm genuinely contemplating a Karlach cosplay for later this year.
I love you too! Oh my god! I've been dying to say that.
I'm also a part-time fluffy animal, as many of you will already know. And when it comes to EVs, I'm also a nerd. I converted my first electric vehicle to lithium-ion by myself using a battery management system that I purchased from another EV enthusiast. I built my own plug-in Prius with, I will admit, limited success. And more recently, I've been working on my own EV projects, including converting my Vectrex VX1 from nickel metal hydride battery packs to old Nissan Leaf cells. And, well, let me just put it this way. When it comes to the level of nerdiness that I am, and I know that many of you are, you will probably agree with me that when it comes to data, we need more data. More data is better. And I'm not talking about a fistful of datas. That was a very weird TNG episode, and the least said about that, the better.
You're as handy with a shooting iron as you are with a woman's heart.
Computer, in program.
So today I'm going to talk you through the process of installing a new application that has just been released, that is completely open source, and that is designed to allow Ford EV owners more easy collection of their charging data. So if you have a Ford Mustang Mach-E, a Ford F-150 Lightning, a Ford E-Transit, or in fact any of the other Ford EVs made around the world, congratulations! You'll be able to install and use the LightningROD app to automatically track your charging sessions, and then feel smug about how much cheaper your EV is to use compared to gas at, what is it now, $4.50 a gallon? Let's get into it. If you came into this video going, what on earth is LightningROD? Well, I wouldn't be surprised, and that's because LightningROD is a reasonably new application that has been developed on GitHub by Squidbytes, who is an F-150 Lightning owner, and they've been working on it for the last couple of years, and it's designed to collect and store and display all of your connected Ford EV charging data in one easy to see place. Now I've got my LightningROD dashboard up here. I installed the application a few days ago, and I'm going to talk you through the process of doing that for yourself in this video. But you can see it's got details of 40 separate charging sessions that my truck has had over the last few months. It includes how much energy was transferred during those charging sessions, and then gives me an approximate cost for my electricity for all of those charging sessions. Now you'll notice here that it says that we have used 1.49 megawatt hours, obviously it's rounded it up, of electricity, and that has roughly translated to $550 of electricity. It's $550.94. You might be looking at that and going, that's an awful lot of money for not a lot of electricity. And you would be right, and that is because in February, the entire team here at the channel, minus Kate, drove all the way down to Southern California and all the way back again. We took the F-150 Lightning, and so there was a lot of public charging sessions that is represented in this data. Normally, when I charge at home here at the house, I am paying, and I've worked this out, I did that yesterday evening, approximately 20 cents per kilowatt hour once you factor in all of the taxes that we pay, all of the transmission charges and all of that stuff. It works out to about 20 cents per kilowatt hour. So if I'm charging at home, the cost to charge is really cheap. But when I'm on the highway, especially when I'm entering into California, some of the charging sessions we were at were charging upwards of 55, 56, 57 cents per kilowatt hour. And that very quickly adds up, more than double the cost to charge at home. In fact, nearly in some cases, 3 times the cost. But if you're into cost analysis and you're into effectively how much am I saving by driving an EV, this application, LightningROD, helps you. Now, the name LightningROD comes from lightning, meaning the Ford F-150 Lightning, ROD standing for records of docks, literally how many times you plug it in and charge. At least that's according to the person who created it. And let's go through the dashboard right now. So you'll see here, we've got my monthly energy by network, and we've also got the energy by network showing you where I have charged the most in the 3 months or so of data, or 2 months rather, of data that I have transferred over to this application manually. When I set it up, it immediately starts pulling data from my FordPass integration and Home Assistant. But for the purposes of this video, I actually manually imported a bunch of data just so I had something to show you. And here you'll see that I have used the Rivian Adventure Network. 44% of my charging sessions in this particular batch of data came from the Rivian Adventure Network. I only charged at home 19.1% of the time. And obviously over the next few months, that number will go up, and it will go up automatically as new data is pulled in. The other cool thing that you can do here is you can break it down by where you've spent money and which networks have cost you the most money. So for example, you'll see here, I have spent a grand total of $316.18 on Rivian Adventure Network charging. EVgo, I've only spent $72, ChargePoint $16.39. And then at home, all of the home charging sessions that I've done have only cost me the equivalent of about $52. Now, the other cool thing here is that there is a comparison saving scenario on the bottom of this screen here that allows you to figure out how your EV compares to a comparably sized gasoline vehicle. Because this is an F-150 Lightning, I've set it up to compare against an F-150 Lightning with an ICE engine, and that averages about 17 miles per gallon, according to the research that I did earlier. Most people with an ICE F-150 average about 17 miles per gallon. So I put that in, and then I put in a price of $4.23 a gallon, because that is the average gasoline price in Portland the day I am filming this, which is Wednesday, 11th of March, 2026. Who knows where the price is going to be in a few days' time, because Iran, the least we say about the policy decisions being made with respect to Iran, the better. But with the war in Iran being waged by the US, that has pushed the price of gasoline up because the price of oil has gone up. So according to this, I have spent 19% less than I would have spent making those same number of trips in a gasoline F-150, averaging 17 miles per gallon at the aforementioned gas price. So enough showing you this dashboard. Let's talk about what you need to install it. And the first thing you're going to need is Home Assistant. Now, we've talked about Home Assistant before. It's a great application. I'll put some links in the down below if you haven't tried Home Assistant before, but it's a great way of doing home automation. It's got huge applicability to all kinds of things. So the lights in my studio are all powered through Home Assistant. I can control them, turn them on, turn them off. I've got scenes set throughout my house. So for example, if one of my security cameras notices movement after dark, the relevant lights come on outside. I've got one that an automation that looks at the pump house that we've got on the property and looks at the electricity consumption. And if there is a sudden spike in electricity consumption, we can infer that the pump has come on. And if it's a certain time of day, and if the bathroom lights are on, the master bathroom lights are on, it infers that someone is in the shower. And so it will automatically turn on the extractor fan in the bathroom to make sure that we extract as much of that moist air as possible and reduce any potential damp issues. So all of those automations are really easy to set up, and I really enjoy doing that. But I also have automations for our servers. So for example, every weekday at a certain time, the servers are automatically turned on so that when the rest of the team are here, they can access all the information they need. But when everyone goes home for the day, I just log in and automatically turn it off. But in the morning, I'm not necessarily done with my morning workout and shower by the time that some of the team arrive. So I don't have to worry about going into the server room and manually turning a server on. It just automatically does it. That's all handled in Home Assistant. And I also have the Home Assistant integrations for both the Chevrolet Bolt EV and also my F-150 Lightning. And in addition to needing Home Assistant, you will also need this FordPass integration. The one I use is a fork of the original IT channel FordPass-HA. It's actually done by Mach-24. It has a little bit more functionality than the original. He's kind of picked up, I suppose he's picked up the flag and carried on with it past the original design of that project, and it gives a whole lot more information. And this new LightningROD app pulls in data through Home Assistant from the HA FordPass integration and allows you then to log and capture it. Now, in order to install all of this, as I said, you'll need Home Assistant. You'll also need the HA FordPass. You will also need a computer to run a Docker container on. Now, you can either use a standalone like Linux machine, or you can run Docker Desktop, depending on which you prefer. I'm not going to talk about which Docker environment you should use. If you don't know what a Docker is at this point, stop. Follow some of the links I've included in the show notes and then come back when you understand it, because you will need to understand how Docker works in order to get this working. However, if you run UNRAID, which I know many of you do, UNRAID is like a storage-based operating system that's loosely based on Slackware that allows you to put a bunch of different hard drives in a computer and turn it into a massive storage array. It's very easy to use, it's very cheap, and you can also run virtual machines. If that's something that you've already got, great. Then this particular tutorial is going to apply to you, because what I'm going to show you now is how I got this running on UNRAID. And if that is in fact the case for you, I'm also going to assume that you're running Home Assistant on UNRAID, or at least your UNRAID installation can talk to Home Assistant. It's on the same network. Just for interest's sake here, I've actually got Home Assistant running as a virtual operating system on a virtual machine within UNRAID. So for me, both LightningROD and Home Assistant are actually on the same host machine. But in order to get this working, in order to get the LightningROD working, you either have to be comfortable with a terminal window, or you will need to be comfortable installing a particular app. And the app you need to install to work with this is called Docker Composer Manager. You can see here on my computer, I've already got it installed. And Docker Composer Manager allows you, if you have the Docker window, which is what I have here, to have separate Docker containers, like a cluster of different Docker Compose files, to bring up more complicated and more versatile Docker container images than you would normally through UNRAID's Docker Compose setup, because UNRAID does Docker slightly differently. And once you've installed that, you'll get this section at the bottom of your UNRAID window. And you see here, I've actually got 3 already. I've got my own personal website running on here. I've got Forge-Joe, or Forge-Joe, I think is what it's called. It's basically an alternative to GitHub. And then we've got LightningROD. So obviously for you, I'm just going to turn my LightningROD off. And that allows me to talk through the installation. So you're going to go here, add new stack, and you'll enter a name for your stack. Then you click OK. I'm not going to do that because I already made the LightningROD. And then once you've done that, you can go to edit description. And you'll see here I've just added self-hosted charging analytics for Ford electric vehicles. Once you've done that, you can click the green button. Before you go any further than that, you need to bring up a terminal window, because in order to get this all to work, you're going to need to pull down the files from GitHub. So what you're going to do is you're going to log in to your UNRAID server, either through a terminal or you can do it through the UNRAID terminal app. I'm just going to log in remotely, and then I'm in as root on my UNRAID. Once you've got your terminal window up, you're going to run the following command. In my case, it's going to be git clone, and then you're going to use the address of the Squidbytes lightningrod.git, and then you're going to tell it where you want it to go. Now, in my case, it's going to be mnt/mnt/user/appdata/lightningrod. Once you hit enter, it will go ahead and download all of the Git files that you need. It will take a while. On my rural internet connection, I think it took about 10 minutes. Once you've done that, make sure that you can actually cd into that particular folder. So you're going to go cd/mnt/user, and then you're going to go to app data, and then you're going to go to LightningROD. And if you can get into it and you can run an ls, you should be able to see all of the information that has been downloaded from GitHub directly to your computer. If you've got to this point, congratulations, that's really the super hard bit finished. Now what you need to do is remember where you downloaded that file to, because then you're going to go back to the GUI in the browser window. You're going to click on LightningROD, you're going to click on Edit Stack, and then you're going to go to Stack Settings, and it's going to ask you where you want to store the .env file. If you don't know what .env is, it's basically a hidden file that stores all of the variables that you will need for your project. Things like the username and the password. So I'm not going to actually show you my password, but it does need to know where to save that .env file. And in my case, I've set it up to go to mnt/user/appdata/lightningrod/.env. And then what you can do, once that's in the right place, you go back to Edit Stack, and then you're going to go to modify your .env file. Now you'll see here right now we've got Postgres user, Postgres password, Postgres database, Postgres host, app port, and debug. You're going to leave everything alone except for your Postgres user and password. Make sure you pick a username and a secure password. Write down the password somewhere. Maybe a password manager would be good for that. And once you're done, you can hit save. Now, if you're not sure what the text is there, don't worry. If you go to the GitHub page, you can actually see what you need to have in the .env file there on that page. So that is exactly as is written by Squidbytes in the official documentation. Once you've done that, however, you're then going to go back and you're going to go to Edit Stack, and this time you're going to go to Compose File. And this time you're going to actually change your Compose file a little bit. If you're using UNRAID, you need to make some changes. If you're using standalone Docker, you could go ahead and use the Compose file that Squidbytes has on their GitHub page. But if you're like me and you're using UNRAID, you need to add a couple of important additional pieces of information to make sure that the Docker file actually works. And I'm highlighting them here. You'll see in the web section of the Docker compose file, there is build context and build Docker file. You will need to make sure that you copy what I have put here to make sure that it works, assuming that you also stored that git clone in mnt/user/app-data/lightningrod. You'll need to tell UNRAID that's where those files are, because otherwise UNRAID won't know. And when UNRAID initially tries to build that Docker compose file, it will fail. So once you've done that, you can go ahead and hit save. Then it will bring up a window to ask you if you want to give the stack UI some labels, and it asks you for the icon. You'll see here, if I show you, you won't see it right now, but in a minute when I bring it up, you'll see that I have a special icon for the Postgres SQL server. And then I also have a special icon for the LightningROD one. And I actually saved my own version of the LightningROD logo onto my local hard drive because I couldn't find a PNG one online. It will also ask for the web UI. That's what I've put in mine. I actually changed the port for my web UI. It defaults to port 8000. I changed mine to 8090 because I already had another image running on there. So that is all okay. And then with everything done, we can go ahead and just hit compose up, and it will go ahead and create your LightningROD. Now it's started, everything is healthy. You can click done. And you'll also see here, just so that you can see here, you see I've got a picture of an elephant. That is the MySQL elephant here. And then underneath it, we've got the LightningROD. So they're running, and I can go directly to the web UI and it will show you all of the information. Now, I would recommend that if you want to import data, Squidbytes has actually designed this so that if you already have your charging data saved elsewhere, you can go ahead and import a .csv file and it will automatically import the information that you need. But I've actually just manually entered mine. And you'll see here, for example, it tells me I charged at electric error. I used 74.5 kilowatt hours. I paid $31.21 for it. The start and the end time are completely wrong because I was rushing to put that in the system. But for demonstrative purposes, this is just fine. So another one, if you click here, the Rivian Adventure Network, it says that I charged there on February 10th, and I charged from 9:39 in the morning until 10:22 in the morning. So I was there for 43 minutes. I went from 30% to 89%, added 121 miles of range, and I spent $42.47. Now, interestingly, the app automatically figures out the estimated cost of charging versus what I actually paid. Obviously, the estimated cost doesn't include rush charges, time of use and everything like that. And there was time of use in effect because it's the middle of the morning rush hour. So I actually ended up paying a little bit more than perhaps I might have otherwise done. What can you do for this long term? Well, it's just more data. And if you want to connect it to your Home Assistant, if you go to the settings window here, you'll see you've got the standard stuff here. I've set that gasoline is $4.23 per gallon, and then I've got my 17 miles per gallon. It asks for my time zone, and then it's got all the different charging networks that I've used. I have the ability to import my data from a CSV file, and then you've got my Home Assistant configuration. And again, you will have to manually import that yourself. You will need a long-lived access token from Home Assistant, but if you've got this far in the video, I'm going to assume you already know how to do that. If you're not 100% sure, open Home Assistant, go into the picture of you, and then go into security, and then there'll be a section there that allows you to generate a long-lived access token, which you'll be able to put in here. And once it's got your Home Assistant URL and also your long-lived access token, it will be able to talk to Home Assistant in the background and pull in any charging data that Home Assistant gets from your FordPass integration. The cool thing about this is that it doesn't add additional strain on your Ford connectivity. So it's pulling data from stuff that's already arrived in Home Assistant. It's not actually pulling Ford for the information. It's taking information that's already arrived if you have FordPass, and then it's shuffling it over into Lightning Dock to allow you to keep track of your charging. Now, while this was designed by someone who is an F-150 Lightning owner, you can use it if you're a Ford Mustang Mach-E owner, because you use the same integration to get data from that. And if you have an E-Transit, you can use it as well. I think eventually, I'm hoping that this will open up to other EV types as well. I'd love for it to support the Chevrolet Bolt EV that we have, but because it's GitHub, and it's an open source project, if you want to jump in and get coding, go right ahead. I actually pushed last night, the night before I'm filming this, I actually pushed a bug fix because there was a bug in the code that meant that when I tried to connect to my Home Assistant instance, because my Home Assistant is so big, it was just causing the system to error out because the buffer was too small. So I had to actually increase the size of the buffer, and I put a pull request to apply the fix. And if you're watching this before that pull request has been approved, you might have the same issue as me. So head to my GitHub, which I will also link to in the down below, and you'll see the fix that I applied. I know it's really nerdy, but thank you for watching until the end. If you like more data and you like doing cool data-y stuff, let me know in the down below, because I would love to make more videos like this. Also, thanks to the amazing list of people scrolling by on either side of me right now. They are some of the more than 2,000 people now who support this channel and keep us alive. A couple of weeks ago, I had to sit down and go through our books for last year, because we are registered as effectively as a sole trader. My partner and I put this company through our tax return, and it was lovely to see the increase in Patreon support that we enjoyed last year, just as YouTube ad revenue fell by more than $10,000 last year. The increase in support for Patreon was what really kept us going last year. So if you want to join up and keep this channel going, that is the place to go, patreon.com/transportofod. You can also send us Ko-fi. You can send us old-fashioned checks to our mailing address, our PO box, which is listed on our website, and so much more. So until next time, thanks for watching. Continue to be the positive change that you want to see in others in the world. And as always, keep evolving.